If you're like most people, then you are not in control of your money. Rather, it's in control of you. It dictates when, where, and how hard you work. And maybe even when you spend time with your kids and the nutritional benefits of the food that you eat. You have become passive in your relationship to your money, and your passivity has allowed the influences of comparison, marketing, and your natural desires to take control. This is a problem for many reasons, but perhaps most because your money is what you trade your time, energy, efforts, and thoughtfulness to receive. In that way, your money is representative of your life's energy. So when you are not in control of your money, you're sacrificing your very existence for things that aren't meaningful to you because they weren't decided by you. And this is ancient wisdom. Matthew 6:21 even says it like this: "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." And I am going to address this problem more directly, but first I wanted to share with you an experience that I had recently which inspired this video. Before I moved to the Dallas area, I lived on 4 acres of land out in the Texas country. My wife and I lived in a 3-bedroom manufactured home that was 25 years old, and at times it could show it. I had to work my butt off to keep the land from taking our home away from us one piece at a time, to prune back mistletoe that threatened to take down our old growth trees, to reinforce the foundation under our water heater when it threatened to collapse. I fought to keep our home in control so that natural forces like critters, destructive plants, and the natural elements of water, heat, and cold couldn't crumble parts of our home and make it unsafe for myself and my family to live. As a product of our efforts, our home became a sanctuary for us, and my wife and I loved our time living there. But God had plans for us to move out. And long story short, we ended up trading our 4-acre home in the country for a small luxury apartment near the city. And I'll be honest, a big part of me was really happy not to have to work so hard just to keep things running. And I was able to use some of my newly found free time to build up my company and this channel. But recently there were some windstorms down here in Texas that would knock out the power off and on over a couple of days. I even remember thinking to myself how happy I was that I wasn't going to have to deal with any of the issues resulting from this windstorm. I knew that as long as we were in this apartment, any issues that arose from the windstorms were going to be somebody else's problem. But after the windstorms passed, a section of the apartment still wasn't getting any power. There were lights that wouldn't turn on and outlets that wouldn't provide a charge. For about 2 days, we just ignored it. The important areas of the apartment, like our kitchen and this office, were still getting electricity, and the heat was still running, so I figured at some point the apartment complex would get around to it. Honestly, I didn't even think about it much. Besides, I hadn't lifted a finger since I moved here, and everything from the elevator repair to the landscaping had been done for me. But this morning, I finally dedicated more than 2 seconds to thinking about the electricity problem, and I realized that it was only affecting a small part of the house, so probably the storm had just knocked a breaker switch. Sure enough, I found the breaker box for the first time, flipped that switch that was off, and we had power back. But then I had to take a moment, because that was just embarrassing. In less than a year, I had gone from commanding my property, fighting nature and the elements, and never asking for help unless I had first done my utmost to address the problem myself, to this luxury apartment guy who didn't even think about a problem in his own home for long enough to realize that the answer was right in front of me. Literally right in front of me. I had gotten soft on my housing and lost the control that I used to have. And without realizing it, my passivity had led me to be the kind of person that just sat back and waited for somebody else to fix my problems. As a certified financial planner and the founder of my own personal finance company, I have talked with hundreds of people about their money, and I see the same thing happening all over the place when it comes to our money. Now, you could say that our current financial woes are not our fault, that there are industries spending hundreds of billions of dollars every year to convince us how to spend our money, or that our government hasn't done XYZ, and that big corporations have done ZYX, and excuse after excuse, and long story short, that's why I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Well, you could say that, and honestly, there is some truth to it. But what good does that do you? I've had clients come to me spending 70% of their take-home pay on housing. How could they save money? They could barely afford to keep the lights on and food on the table. But never once did they stop to consider that no one was forcing them to live there and that that was a choice that they had made. We delude ourselves into thinking that we have no options and no control, when in reality the number of things that we have control over is so much greater than the number of things that we don't. And I've been to places where that wasn't the case, where the number of things they had control over was much, much smaller than the number of things that they didn't. And still, most of the people there rejoiced. They didn't complain, but instead took the few things they did have control over and used them to make life better for themselves and for the people around them. I have this book club with my niece, and this month we read a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Now, Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist and a Jewish Austrian during World War II. During the war, he was taken and forced into labor at 4 different concentration camps, including Auschwitz and Dachau. He was beaten, starved, suffered exposed to the German and Polish winters, and experienced the worst kind of cruelty at another person's hand that you can possibly imagine. But do you know what he said after he had finally experienced liberation? He said, Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. If you want to take back control of your money, that is, take back control of your life, you have to stop blaming other people and start capturing every opportunity that you have to take back control of your life and make a positive difference in your life and in the lives of people around you by taking back control of your finances. I'm currently working on a series of videos about a topic I'm calling LaunchFi, which is a process for taking back control of your finances so you can live a more meaningful and intentional life. If that interests you, then start by subscribing to this channel and start taking back control of your financial life by figuring out where you are now. You can do this by reviewing the past 3 to 6 months of your expenses, and you can do this with the help of a free budgeting template that I've created. You can use this free monthly budgeting template to categorize your expenses over the previous 3 to 6 months, to keep track of your current budget to make sure that you're on track for this month, and project future months' expenses to make sure that you're spending money in a way that's actually meaningful to you. I'll share a link to that free monthly budgeting template in the comments and in the description, and I'll also share a link to this video here, which is a tutorial to make sure you're getting the most that you can out of that template. In the meantime, if you liked this video, then please do like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. And God bless.